Do you ever find yourself looking for a new smartphone upgrade and just being so underwhelmed with the lack of variety? Yeah, that's not a thing we experience either. The smartphone market is an extremely saturated one that becomes even more saturated with an army of new releases every single gosh dang year. And by every year, I mean every month, there's a new phone freaking coming out. So we have more choices now than ever before, and companies have to pull off something really cool, you know, those things that out of their hat to make their flagship phone stand out from the crowd. LG especially so, because every time they've tried, they've just like, what was the LG and Friends crap that they pulled with, what was it, the G5? What was that, LG? So the company has produced some real gems like the G6 in the past. Last year was a great phone, but even though their mobile game is strong, we can't really remember ever really getting hyped for an LG flagship. I mean, the LG Flex 2 was like the closest thing was like, that was dope, but I never even owned it. I was just like, that's a cool phone to look at Best Buy. But maybe, just maybe, the LG G7 ThinQ will change all of that. That's right, LG has blown the lid off of the latest flagship, and we finally get to go over all of the juicy details. So first, let's drool over the design, because looks are everything, my friends. At first glance, the G7's design seemed, you know, a little unremarkable, and that's mostly because it is. Just like the Samsung's S9, LG didn't decide to break the mold with their new flagship. The current design of most of their higher-end phones just sort of works, so why mess with it? Phone looks very similar to other more modern flagships, and even sports a notch at the top that houses sensors and the earpiece, just like the cool kids. Luckily, if you're not into that jazz, there is an option to black out the notch area through settings. But my friends, I have to tell you that like after having an iPhone 10, like the notch is just not all that recognizable. Like my friends, this notch, not noticeable. It really isn't. It's just not like, I'm totally okay with it being separated. Like fun fact, I'm okay with notches. Just my thing. So another upgrade the G7 brings over the G6 is a glass back, which is great for D-brand because you're just gonna skin the crap out of it just like I did with my iPhone 10. D-brand dragon skin, this thing is fire. Check this out. Look, that's gorgeous. Anyways, better than the actual glass back. Even if I break that glass back, like I have no idea. It's under the skin, who cares? But like I mentioned, the upgrade of the glass back is only an upgrade if you're not the type who drop kicks your phone at least twice a day like someone we know, Tank. Gosh dang. Like, he's gone through so many freaking phones since he started working for the company. It's a good thing we don't review them because I'd have to be buying, oh my goodness, like my good boy, get your grip on your phone, okay? So overall, the G7 looks really sleek and modern and has all of the right curves in all of the right places. The phone will ship in 4 color options, including blue, gray, black, and pink. Those aren't what LG calls those colors, but that's what they are. Stop trying to be fancy LG and every other single freaking phone manufacturer. The G7, once again, sports 2 cameras, which we'll get into a little later, but instead of the parallel arrangement that we saw with the G6, the G7s are arranged vertically with the fingerprint sensor right below it. Thankfully, LG decided not to have the fingerprint sensor act as a power button, instead adding a dedicated power button on the right of the device. On the left, you get your prerequisite volume buttons, as well as the addition of a dedicated Google Assistant button, not a Bixby button, which makes no freaking sense. Anyways, unfortunately, LG doesn't seem to have caught the memo that no one likes dedicated unmappable buttons for that kind of thing, but at least it's Google Assistant and not their own kind of crappy AI that they're doing. So surely letting users map the button to whatever they want can't be that big of an issue, LG. The bottom of the device, though, has your usual USB port, the speaker grill, and what's this? A 3.5mm headphone jack? Preposterous. With the more superficial stuff out of the way, let's really look at what makes the LG G7 tick. Basic specs. So as expected, LG isn't pulling any punches when it comes to the hardware stuffed into the G7. Just like Samsung's flagship Galaxy S9, at the heart of the G7 sits Qualcomm's latest beefy octa-core Snapdragon 845. The phone will be available in 2 flavors. The first sports 4GB of RAM and 64GB of storage, while the second features 6GB of RAM and 128 gigs of storage respectively. Strangely, LG decided not to go for an OLED screen for the G7, instead opting for a 6.1-inch IPS LCD panel with a resolution of 3120 by 1440p. And it's a very bright panel at that. The brightest LCD display to date, according to LG, at 1000 nits brightness, which is like the highest rating of HDR you can get, which makes it ideal for, you know, midday outings. And while being physically bigger than the Galaxy S9 thanks to a bigger screen, the G7 is about 6mm thinner and about a gram lighter. Powering all of this hardware is a 3000 mAh battery, with wireless charging capabilities because they went the glass back, not a metal one, so you can use Qi charging, which isn't the biggest deal, especially considering how bright the display is able to go, but it should be more than enough for everyday use cases. Not mine. I need more than 3,000 milliamp hours, LG. So the G7 will ship with the latest Android 8.0 Oreo build and is water and dust resistant. So the G7 seems like your run-of-the-mill 2018 flagship, so what's setting it apart? Who gives a rip at this point? So when talking about the G7's most eye-catching features, you can't really start anywhere other than the ThinQ technology. I don't care what it's called. I mean, come on, it's in the friggin' name. ThinQ is the branding LG is using on many of its newer devices, letting users know that said devices have AI functionality. And if you're not worried about the coming singularity where machines take over humans and either we have to integrate or be destroyed, you're not thinking hard enough, but we get it put into phones, so it makes it seem cuddly and friendly, and eventually we're just gonna be batteries in the matrix. So this functionality allows Think devices to tether to one another almost seamlessly, so you can tell your washing machine to wash your clothes, your coffee maker to start brewing, your TV to take over the world. I'm not joking, this is what is going to come because this is what AI brings us. Has nobody watched freaking movies and is nobody paying attention to Elon Musk? Maybe it's not something that's imminent, but it's still a great feature if you don't mind an all LG ecosystem, which, I mean, a lot of people just have LG stuff. They even make air conditioners. So another area where the G7 could excel is its built-in Boombox speakers. So built-in speakers are rarely anything to write home about or even to mention in a video, and unfortunately, the G7 doesn't have a stereo kind of setup to improve quality, but if we're talking loudness and bass, the device might not have many rivals. The speaker uses parts of the phone's internal space as a resonance chamber, deepening and boosting overall quality, and the presence LG claims the speaker is about 39% louder than the G6. The G7 also once again features a dedicated 32-bit quad DAC, which should make for some of the best headphone and aux audio experiences you're likely to get on a mobile device. Further adding to the phone's superior audio is the new DTS:X virtual surround tech, which is the first for a mobile. LG's mobile devices haven't exactly been lauded for the camera capabilities either, at least not to the extent of others more popular devices, but even so, they've historically been pretty dang impressive, and that looks again to be the case with the G7. As mentioned before, the phone features dual cameras, each sporting 16 megapixel. Nothing too exciting there. What makes the G7's cameras exciting is that one of them uses a super wide lens, making for fantastic all-inclusive shots, just in case your Aunt Sally just needs to get in, but she doesn't like standing next to your Uncle Fred because he smells like dead pickles, and so like there's a gap and you need the ultra-wide lens. It makes sense. The camera also features AI technology because you just have to put it everywhere once you have it, and that lets the phone detect what's in the scene you want to shoot and then optimizes contrast, color, saturation, etc. to match the scene. LG also claims images will be much brighter when captured on the G7 compared to its predecessor, and it even comes with a sort of bright mode for low light scenes. Hopefully it's not like they just jack up the ISO. Like, you can do this, but it's usually done poorly because you're just raising the ISO and there's a ton of noise in the image, and then it goes through a denoised filter, which just makes it look soft and crappy. Who knows? We'll see if they do this right. It's not even close to the same level as the Galaxy S9's crazy f1.5 aperture that is a mechanical ring, but it should get the job done. Both the 8 megapixel front camera and rear facing camera should support portrait mode. Word spread. Unfortunately, LG has yet to announce an exact official launch date and price for the G7, but it's expected to go on sale sometime in June and will likely cost a little bit more than the G6's launch price of $650. So the question is, to upgrade or not to upgrade? We won't really know whether the G7 is a worthy upgrade over the G6 or whether it can really hang with something like the S9 until we actually can play around with it, but we have a pretty good idea. The G7 looks to be a significant improvement over the G6 and seems like a really well-rounded smartphone for the 2018 market, stuff with everything you need and a little bit more, and just enough to take over the world in a few years. Depending on its pricing, it could really prove to be some tough competition for the rest of the big boys. But if we're being totally honest here, there's just not enough new here to really get excited about. Improvements and more gimmicky features aside, and as I can not stress enough, world-ending technology, the G7 is largely similar to the G6. There really isn't a killer feature to make it really stand out, and it just generally seems a little bland. Where the S9 has that fantastic f1.5 aperture camera to make a compelling upgrade to those who could really use it, and that mechanical ring that actually changes the aperture. Like, it's a first for a smartphone, and like, that's not insignificant that they were able to do that. It just seems like the G7 doesn't really have anything like that. That being said, this isn't really an issue exclusively with the G7. From where we're standing, modern smartphones seem to have plateaued significantly. If you're the type who upgrades their device every year, you're looking at minor iterative improvements at best. Maybe there's a gimmicky feature here and there, but mostly any higher end smartphone device released over the last few years does the same things almost just as well as newer devices. This is largely why many people have stopped regularly upgrading their phones, and many smartphone manufacturers are shipping fewer and fewer of their flagships than before. The point here is this: if you're looking for a 2018 upgrade, you can't really go wrong with any of the new major high-end releases, the G7 included. If you're still rocking the G6 or similarly still relatively new device, upgrading this year doesn't make a whole lot of sense unless you really need one of the killer new features offered by any of the latest flagships. And even then, with price going up ever higher and higher, it's still a pretty tough decision. But then at the same time, like, we're just really waiting on one of those breakthrough technologies, just like we reported on earlier about the TSMC die stacking technology for graphics cards. We think we're getting to the end of the road, and then some manufacturers are just like, we have this revolutionary piece of technology that no one actually has because it's really difficult to do, but we finally pulled it off, so here you go. It's kind of what we're waiting for with smartphones at this point. But I want to know what you all think. Let's have a conversation surrounding this. This is a discussion, a community, something more than just me talking to a camera. I want to hear what you think down in the comments down below or in the community Discord. Be sure to hit that like button. If you enjoyed this video, please get subscribed to stay up to date on all of our tech related content, because we do all tech here. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm Brett with the UFD Tech channel. I already said thank you so much for watching. I ruined my rhythm. I'll see you all in the next video. I lost my place. Goodbye.